Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call the Yeovilton County Board of Education Facilities Committee to order. Today is November the 17th, so we are duly authorized and scheduled to have a Facilities Committee meeting. The first thing is a welcome introduction, so welcome everyone. We're glad you're here. Thank you for spending this next hour with us. I will begin the introductions, and we'll go around to my right, and we'll conclude with you, Mr. Ricketts. My name is Neil James. I represent District 10 on the school board, and I am on the Facilities Committee.
James Edwards, representing District 9 and on the Facilities Committee.
I'm Pam Dawson, and I represent District 6.
Melanie Wellens, District 8 Facilities.
My name is David Cook, and I represent District 1.
And I'm Darrell Ricketts. I represent District 11, and I'm on the Facilities Committee.
Thank you, gentlemen. And Mr. Jones, care to introduce yourself?
Certainly. Thank you, Cliff Jones, Horry County Superintendent.
Thank you, sir. So thank you. We've completed the welcome and introductions, so now I'd like to ask for an approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to that effect?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the question. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The ayes have it. The agenda is approved. The next item on the agenda is to review and approve our committee meeting minutes from October the 20th. Is there a motion?
I move we approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
We have a motion, a second. Is there any deletions or discussions or additions to the committee meeting minutes as presented? Hearing none, we'll call for the question. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The ayes have it, and the committee minutes of October the 20th are approved. We now proceed to our updates, and I'd like to call Mr. Ben Prince to the front. He'll give us an update on St. James Elementary replacement.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, Facilities Committee members, board members, and Mr. Jones. I appreciate the opportunity to bring you some updates from our Operations Division specific to our Facilities Committee. We have now secured both our architect and construction teams for the St. James Elementary Replacement School. Our capital projects team is working closely with our Learning Services Department and school-based team to plan and coordinate our efforts regarding this process. On December 2nd, 2025, we'll have a team made up of staff members from our Operations Division, Communications Team, and Learning Services Team, including the level executive director and building principal. This team will be visiting a district in our state that has recently completed building 2 replacement schools on an existing site. We look forward to this day of collaboration and planning with their team to further strengthen our processes moving forward. Mr. James, any questions regarding our St. James Elementary replacement update?
Mr. Prince, can you volunteer the name of the district or school you're planning to visit?
Yes, sir. It's Richland 2 in Columbia.
Okay, cool. All right, any questions for Mr. Prince on our St. James replacement school?
Just a comment.
Okay.
I just wanted to say thank you to the entire procurement and facilities team for so expeditiously attacking this project. It means much to the St. James Elementary student body and to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dawson.
Okay, if there's no other comments, we'll proceed to item B, which is the Energy Committee update. Mr. Prince, you're still up for a couple.
Yes, sir. Okay, updates regarding our Energy Committee's work is as follows. Before beginning, though, I would like to recognize 2 of our committee members that are actually present here today. Mr. Terry Hucks is our Coordinator of Maintenance, and Ms. Bobby Antonucci is our Systems Analyst. So we're glad to have them with us. Several staff members recently attended the fall conference of the Association of South Carolina Energy Managers. Our staff was able to join energy leaders from across South Carolina to share insights, innovations, and strategies to strengthen our energy management system within our district. Our team members attended informative sessions such as AI and energy management, infrastructure mapping and GIS, Palmetto Air Quality Collaborative, Experience You Can Bank On, Efficiency You Can See, and the South Carolina Energy Office funding opportunities. In addition, we are looking into many grants offered by the South Carolina Energy Office aimed at energy efficiency. We will keep you updated as we progress through the grant process. Mr. James, our overall goal is that with our focus on energy efficiency through the work of this committee, that we're going to see an overall positive impact related to our Facilities Conditions Index as we strive to better serve and maintain our existing facilities.
Mr. Prince, can I ask a couple questions?
Yes, sir.
When you're applying for the grants, is that only with the South Carolina Energy Office, or are there other entities you may be applying?
That was from them. Actually, Ms. Bobby Antonucci sat in on that session. Bobby, was that through this?
Yes, right now it is, the only ones we're aware of is through the energy office.
Through the office. She actually was in that session, so.
I know, speaking from the energy industry, there are a number of grants that are currently available through the DOE, Department of Energy. And, you know, I know that the power suppliers for Horry County schools, they have some rate structures that have changed, and there may be some opportunities for Horry County schools to look at the impacts of those structures and to see if there's some grants available to review and come up with some recommendations.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you for the insight. We'll certainly do that. And we've identified a few areas where we would begin as far as some HVAC systems that we feel like would be the biggest bang for our buck to start. So we'll keep you updated with that process as we move forward.
Okay, I know as a commercial customer, it's a standard KW rate based on your KW, but there are some, I guess, some nuances that you can adjust.
Yes, sir. That's right. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Ben Prince regarding the Energy Committee?
Mr. Prince, I think for many years, Horry County Schools had an energy department that we receive reports of energy savings each year. Are you moving back towards that? Because we are a very large district and a lot of buildings. And I remember over and over getting reports of hundreds of thousands of dollars saved due to timing of lighting, timing of HVAC systems and things like that. So is that kind of the direction that you're going in?
Yes, sir. Mr. Ricketts, have you been on our committee meetings? We've covered
No, but I
some-
do remember Paul Hooks very well, and
We-
Terry does too, but we did have energy for many years.
Those are several of the topics and areas we're looking to address. We established this committee back last July, so it has been growing, and those are several areas that we're looking to address. So you can look for more information moving forward.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, if there's no other questions, we'll move on to our capital projects video.
All right. So we have our most recent capital projects video for you at this time.
The Aner High and Conway High baseball and softball stadiums are getting their new buildings dried in, and field renovations are nearing completion. Stadium seating and press boxes will be installed in the next few weeks. These projects are on schedule to be completed in time for their use in the spring. Work on the roofing replacement at Aner High continues and is on track to be completed within the next several months. The school's interior renovations are also continuing and include the replacement of the fire alarm, lighting, and ceilings. At Carolina Forest High, contractors have nearly completed B House and some ancillary buildings. Once complete, B House classes will shift from modulars back into the classrooms, and contractors will begin work on C House, whose classrooms will then transition into the modulars. Horry County Schools facilities, building on the penny.
Any questions for Mr. Prince? Mr. Prince, just a comment. That's a little less projects than what we've seen in the past, but they're still big projects
Yes, sir.
and a lot of moving parts. With I guess the cooperative weather we've had, are we pretty much ahead of schedule on our outdoor facilities?
We are. Everything is moving along smoothly. We recently had a paving this past week of tennis courts in Socastee. So all of our outside projects, and that's why we focused a lot on the baseball, softball, because that's our biggest one going on right now. But yes, sir, the weather's been great, so everything is on schedule or ahead.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Prince, is everything on budget?
We are within budget, yes, sir, right now.
Okay, thank you,
No
sir.
budget issues.
Any other questions? Okay, now we move on to our discussion items. I look forward to our first report, enrollment updates. Mr. Birch.
Thank you, Mr. James. I briefly want to go through an update on our historical ADM, average daily membership. We've received the 45-day average daily membership data this year. The date was mid-October. So we took that data and we plugged it into all our analysis sheets and created some graphs for you. And I just want to briefly run through those so you can get an idea of where we are this year. So this is our 10-year historical K-12 average daily membership. As you can see on the left, it starts in 2015, goes up to this current year. Our 2025-26 45-day ADM was 45,666, which is down from 46,264 from last year. This is a slide, I just added this to show you there's an additional 1,521 pre-kindergarten and child development students that are also on top of that 45,666. This gives us a total of 47,187 pre-K through 12 ADM. This is the annual change in grades K through 12. The annual change this year was a decline of 598 students. This represents a drop of 1.29% over last year. Several factors seem to be behind this. As Ms. Allen shared earlier in the year, we had the opening of a new charter school, as well as continued existing impacts, excuse me, from some existing charter schools. That coupled with some things I'm going to show you in the next couple slides caused us to slide down under last year's enrollment. This is a lot of data on one chart, but this is the grade by grade 10-year historical ADM. Looking at the grade by grade data shows several points of interest. Grades K through 5 over the last 10 years have shown significantly less growth than grades 6 through 12, with only 990 students over that period. In middle school and high school, we have seen much higher growth over the same period. 1,855 students in grades 6 through 8, and 1,683 students in grades 9 through 12. This is an 11% growth rate over the 10-year period. As obviously we've had some ups and downs there due to the COVID-19 impacts, but we did grow 4,528 students over that period. The next 3 slides or 4 slides are related to the K-12 historical average daily membership by area or by attendance area. This is one we like to do every year to see where in the county growth or non-growth is occurring. This is the total K-12. As you can see, we're down 598 over last year. There were only 3 attendance areas that had growth this year: Aner, Conway, and North Myrtle Beach. And this growth was very mild. In the 4 years since post-COVID, we do see some higher numbers in those areas. 5 of the 9 attendance areas showed some growth, and our 4-year change was 1,459 students, or 3.3%. Digging down into the grades K-5, you can see that only 2 areas had growth in K-5 this year, Aner and Conway, and overall there was a decline in K-5 of 260 students in the district, or 1.26%. Post-COVID, there has been steady growth in K-12, K-5 though, but the declines we see this year may indicate that trend could be moderating somewhat. In grades 6 through 8, we continue to see a very slight decline overall, 21 students district-wide, and this loss was moderated by the growth in Carolina Forest and North Myrtle Beach. The 4-year change shows most of the growth in Carolina Forest and Conway, but that also may be slowing with some of the information we saw this year. And finally, looking at the high school data, We see only two areas that grew this year, Aner and Loris, and that growth was very small, almost flat. Over the 4-year period, we've only seen a growth of 94 total high school students in the 4 years since COVID. So very mild high school growth overall. And lastly, looking at the county birth rates and the kindergarten relationship, we continue to see a relatively flat birth rate in Horry County. The birth rate on this chart is the line that goes on over the graph, over the bar chart. You can see, particularly since 2014, or really 2011, it's been relatively flat. Kindergarten enrollments prior to 2011 exceeded the birth rate from 5 years previous, which indicated a large immigration of families with children under 5. In other words, the kids were born here. 5 years later, there were more people in kindergarten than there were born here 5 years earlier. People moved in. After the subprime mortgage crisis started, kindergarten enrollments dropped well below the birth rate 5 years previous. And you can see that in 2006, 7, 8, and 9. And again, the bottom graph is, the bottom numbers are the year of the birth. The white numbers in the bar is the year of kindergarten. So you're looking at the 5-year lag there. This seemed to indicate during that period that there was an out-migration of families with children under 5. In other words, they were born here, they didn't show up 5 years later for kindergarten. Since 2015, you can see that birth rate has remained relatively flat. Kindergarten enrollments have generally equaled the birth rate 5 years previous. We had some interesting catch-up that happened after COVID, but we're predicting next year that the final graph for 2026 there, that it will be about what the birth rate was 5 years ago. And we think that will probably continue going forward. So again, it's relatively flat, but we are monitoring this annually and working with South Carolina DEC to make sure we have the latest and greatest data by month. I'll be happy to answer any questions. I know I covered a lot there, but we can flip back to any of the charts and go over anything in detail you'd like.
Mr. Burns, can you go back to either slide 12 or slide 15? Okay, on this slide, you
Yes.
have Early College and Scholars Academy listed. Are those students counted in their base schools as well?
No, sir, they are not anymore.
Okay.
Early College High School was always its own high school, and I believe Scholars Academy became its own standalone high school 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 5 now.
Okay.
So they're counted essentially at that school and not in the base school. So they're not double counted.
Just wanted to double check on that, because they do show some growth.
Minor growth, but it's a lot of that is based on applications, I believe. So it varies from year to year. Some years they're up, some years they're flat. Depends on what's going on that year.
You know, we had a discussion on this several months back, and we kind of felt, I think as a whole, there were a couple reasons why we may see some declining growth. One is our political climate may have changed a little bit, so we may have had some people leaving our area. The second reason was we've got an aging population. You know, as our population grows, they're beyond the childbearing ages, so we aren't having as many children that are accompanying the parents. And then the third reason was choice. We're seeing a lot of additional schools, or whether it's a charter school, religious school, private school, they're opening up and they are attracting some of our students. Do we have, I think at one time you showed us a number of students that may be attending some of these alternative choices. Do you have that information handy?
I do not have that handy tonight, Mr. James. I believe Ms. Allen would be able to give
Okay.
you some of that data, and there may be an opportunity in the future for that.
So, Mr. Birch, and board members, I'll let you know that next month, in December, we have an update to that enrollment piece, and we are taking this new data that is being presented tonight, overlaying that with the enrollment presentation from a couple of months. And also, we will have, at that point, we have done an exit interview survey to the parents who left Horry County schools. We sent probably about 1,000 emails out, and we've already received nearly 200 emails back, or over 200. And so we are gathering and mining that information to bring that back to the board to add another layer of perception and people's experiences so that we can keep those families possibly in the future.
Okay, any other questions from Mr. Birch?
Just
Ms. Dawson?
one question.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Burgess, Superintendent and Chairman, I was just running some quick numbers. So the county population in that same period of 2005 to 2025, the latest census numbers were to 23, but if you assume the same year-over-year growth, running it to 2025, we would have had a 36% increase in population in the county in that period of 2005 to 2025. That track, Neil,
that
roughly with
tracks.
what you're seeing on the utility side. And in that same period, we had an 11% growth in our student population. So our county population is like this. Our student population is like this, which only goes to underscore our assumptions that we mined during our demographic study, which is, I know in my district, the average age of people moving here is 54 years old. So that is consistent and seems to be logical in terms of growth with the county. And since we know that the county growth is predicted to continue to grow at that rate, it would be interesting to see the latest numbers. CCU has those numbers available through their economic and studies department.
Sure. And you're exactly right. You're hitting on one of the things that's been changing in our county demographics over the last 10, 20 years. And that is we are predominantly a retirement community with 55 and older, 54 and older. Typically, families that either have much older children or no children, and they're empty nesters, and they're relocating after their kids are grown. So we think that is exactly one of the trends that's happening, and it's backed up by that gap in county growth versus school growth.
Yes. That was
that's
why I
not-
mentioned it. I think it underscores that assumption. Another interesting factor in that is that as we predictively run our next capital improvement plan, which will be 2030 to 2035, we need to continue to exercise caution so as not to overbuild. I'm always amazed when we attend conferences that so many districts around the nation are not only consolidating, but are closing schools. We are one of the few districts that are not. So I'm grateful for that.
We've been blessed not to have to deal with that challenge. But
Well,
yeah, I
throw
think,
just a caution to the board as they see this. It's hard for the public sometimes to hold two diverging thoughts, and that is we are in the fastest growing county, fastest growing city in the United States, while our school system is flat or slightly declining. That, for all the reasons that we've just been able to verbalize, oftentimes doesn't make sense to the public. And as we look to the future, here are a couple of other truths. Number one is that the educational landscape will become more competitive
Yes.
in the state of South Carolina, in particular Horry County. The second is that because of all of these things, we are going to have to look at efficiencies. Those efficiencies can include attendance lines, can include some other types of utilization of our facilities. I say that not because I want to, because all of those things are hard, but because that's what we're seeing through the data that's presented today. Thank you, Joe.
Just one comment, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Birch, would you say that we are in line with national trends, or do we differ?
I think in terms of some of the.
In terms of birth rate?
Oh, and that's where I was gonna, actually
Right.
where I was going. In terms of the birth rates, we're right in line with what we're seeing nationally. Some of the studies I've read for Horry County as well as for the nation. And this gets into the weeds a little bit, but there's what they call a replacement value in the birth rate, which is greater than 2 or 2.1 in order for a population to maintain its number or grow. Our replacement rate in Horry County has been well below 2 for a long time, and it's dropped below 2 in the country now for a number of years, which in the absence of in-migration, a population with a lower than 2 replacement rate will decline.
As I recall, it's like 1.7 or 1.8.
That's
something
that's
like that,
about
right?
what I
Yeah,
remember.
yeah.
So we are very much seeing that trend here that we've seen elsewhere in the country.
Thank you.
I would say, while the numbers may show a slight decline compared year to year, where we have built new schools, they are being utilized. So, our past
Absolutely.
efforts were well-planned, appropriately planned, and now we continue to, as we always do, we continue to look at our plans to see if they're set in the right direction going forward. So, we look at some of these schools. I know that in the Aner community, I think every school's pretty much at capacity. I look at Loris, and I'm surprised they're a negative number with all the construction that's going on along Highway 9, but it must be, I guess, on the other side of the line because it's going to North Myrtle Beach. But again, I think the aging population is really kind of skewing the numbers some.
I think you're right there. I think and Mr. Edwards would probably be able to speak to Highway 9 in that area, in the Loris community, you as well, that there's a lot of retirees moving up there. You're not seeing a lot of young children. And I think all this is good discussion to have, but I do want to make sure I don't scare anybody here, and make sure you understand that we do foresee over the next 5 years some growth. Okay? Maybe just not at the level we've seen it in the past. So we're not bottoming out or anything like that. And I think you made the point about careful planning. I have to say we've done a fantastic job and over the last couple decades of not overbuilding. Okay? Because we're not having issues where we're talking about this school is struggling to keep an enrollment that makes sense. And maybe we need to consolidate or close. So I think this district and this school board ought to be commended for being very careful about what they build and when. And we'll continue to work towards that.
Well, thank you for all your efforts. You
Mr.
kind of
Chairman.
led us in that direction, so we appreciate all your keen insight, working with other entities to make sure that we get the correct information, so thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yeah, Dave.
Mr. Birch, I have one question. So I know that back before I was elected to the board, I know that in late 21 or sometime in 22, we had that, we had those people did research for us,
Yes, sir.
that growth research. Just for giggles, have you ever kind of just looked at it to see how are we doing compared to that? Because I know that if you look at it all the way to the end, you go, what, really? How could that be? But are we, it's only 3 years, but have you looked at that to see if we're kind of trending along with that?
I have looked at that. I will say that we have done better than they thought we would.
Okay.
Year on year. But this drop we saw this year came a little later, I think, than what they had anticipated it happening. So we've done better, but then we hit this year. So I need to watch it another few years to see if we're tracking okay. But I think the timing was a little bit off on their expectations versus what reality was. And I'm showing the next few years we should show some growth coming back. So I don't know that we're going to continue to see this negative every year. I can't promise that, but I don't know that.
But the thought process
is similar.
of the seniors that move here, and you talk about that area, I live out there also, and I know what I see, moving in, the people that moving into our neighborhoods and the neighborhoods, up 9 all the way down there, there's a lot of seniors
Yes.
that aren't, with child.
And one of the key data points I did look at real closely was high schools, because their forecast was that several of the high schools we have would be reaching even greater enrollments by the end of 2029, and we are not on track to meeting that. So I think they were a little overzealous maybe in the 9 through 12. But again, this is forecasts. I mean, this is how it goes sometimes, so.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Edwards?
I was just going to add to that, Mr. Birch, that I think some of their reasoning was solely on demographics. But the charter schools and the other reasonings behind some of our decline for this particular year was not developed in that study at all.
And you're absolutely correct. In fact, you'll see a lot of these, and I even do it when I release our forecast for annual forecast, is I'll caveat everything, because you don't know what, one major hurricane or a major charter school opening affects all of this. And, when you're doing that, you can't predict 3 years out what that may look like. Right. So you're right. That's what we're seeing a lot of this year. And that was something we couldn't have necessarily anticipated.
Okay, any other questions on Mr. Birch regarding the enrollment numbers? I suspected this would be an interesting topic, so, we had lots of questions. Hearing no other questions, we'll move on to the naming request for Green Sea Floyd's High School Community Room. I think Mr. Ricketts.
I think so. I have that. At the October 17th meeting of the Green Sea Floyd's Area Advisory Board, a presentation was made to name the community room of Green Sea Floyd's High School in memory of Mr. Rodney C. McPherson, former administrator of the school. Mr. McPherson was instrumental in the consolidation of Green Sea High School and Floyd's High School in 1976 and served as the assistant principal from 1976 until 1992, when he was named principal. Mr. Mack, as he was affectionately known, was an equal partner with Mr. Enzer in assuring that the needs of the students in both communities were met to the highest standards. This recommendation has come through the School Improvement Council of Green Sea Floyd's High School and the Area Advisory Board, and Mr. Chairman, I move that we move this on to the full board.
Okay, is there a second?
I will second that.
Have a second. Any discussion? I think without question, this has gone through the proper protocol. I think it's appropriately selected. So if there's any discussion, if not, we'll call for the question. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The ayes have it, so we will move this naming request forward to the full board we'll introduce it next meeting, December the 8th, and we'll vote on it in January. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our agenda. Is there a motion that we adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Second, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The meeting of the Facilities Committee is adjourned. Thank you.